What's up, guys? Just gonna throw one more video together for tonight, so we know what we're doing going into tomorrow. Um, I've added some things here. So this is the main level that we've been working in lately. I saw Vaughn put up a main room 1 and then just main room skeleton. So this is main room 1, the one we've been messing with. I changed the bounce pads. I believe they're under environment now, so that they're wider, like that, scaled up better. I also have elevator vertical, which is like this one. Elevator horizontal, which is like that one. I'll show you those in a second in action. And the items folder is now the pickups folder. Makes a little more sense. Naming convention wise. I don't need all the engine content. User interface. Nothing should have changed there. Nope. Levels. Yeah, all that fun stuff. So, made some changes to the blueprints for the level, and for some of the other blueprints, you can see like the ones with the pluses are the ones that I've. Oh, actually, no, you won't see the pluses anymore because I checked everything in already and pushed already. So it should just be normal stuff. So let's play the level. So I have a vertical elevator that rises from ground level to the height of these other platforms, as well as this horizontal elevator that runs back and forth between two platforms. Let's grab all our stuff real quick. There's now a total of 20 viruses that spawn, and they spawn between this platform and the far platform here. So clear these ones out first. Wait for the platform to come back. Since 20 viruses was the amount they wanted us to have for the player to kill, so I went with 20 to start. They should replicate if I leave them. It should be, I believe the replicate time is now 60 seconds because I didn't want to be too quick, and these viruses aren't, oh yeah, see they split from themselves, isn't that cool? They split right out of themselves. They spawn the new viruses at the same location that the viruses already exist at, so every existing virus spawns one right on top of itself so that they separate when they move again. Vertical elevator. I also added some other stuff to help with just the flow of the game and everything. So like in here I now have it fetching all of the nav meshes, which are those squares that the enemies can move around in, and then it creates an array out of them and then stores it and also counts how many different boxes there are. And the initial enemy spawn is now a separate function from enemy spawn. So the initial enemy spawn will grab how many boxes there are and grab the array of boxes. It'll randomly pick a box and then spawn an enemy in that box. So if we set up 3 more nav meshes, when you do the spawn, it will spawn some of the enemies in that nav mesh randomly. It'll be random between all the different nav mesh boxes. And then the enemy spawn is what triggers every 60 seconds on a timer. This actually gets every virus that already exists, puts them into an array, and then for every virus that already exists, it spawns a virus in its place, doubling the amount of viruses that are on the board and making sure they spawn directly on each other so that it looks like the virus replicates. So some quality of life stuff to make that better. I don't believe I changed anything else here. That's all just part of the doing the initial spawn and then the enemy spawn. Which nothing should have changed. I shouldn't have to make any saves here. Which, let's see. There's also, oh yeah, so I can, as an example, for example, I can go over here and I can drop under volumes, I can drop a nav mesh bound right in here. Now it'll turn green to show me what part of the map is valid for the AI to move around on. So let's do this, let's do that, and then we'll move it out a little bit. So now this has a box on it that can spawn AI, so if I play from here, some of my initial 20 will be here with me, and some will be there, and some will be there. So we can now put nav meshes anywhere in the level that we want enemies to initially spawn, and they will spawn there. We do need to make 2 more types of enemies. So for the alpha, I only have the 1 enemy. For the beta release, I will have the other 2 done. And I will try and give them different AI so that one maybe, like this one will be passive, and as the player walks around, it doesn't do anything. Virus B maybe will run from the player within the bounds of its nav mesh and try and escape, and Virus C may be aggressive and come to the player to try and attack them. But for now, these are the 3 areas that can now spawn viruses now that I added one here, which this won't be in the push, because I'm not going to push this. It's already been pushed for the day. So I'll just delete it, and I'm not going to save these changes. But so you can see how easy it is. So like if anybody, like say for example Vaughn, if you wanted to go in and start putting in boxes, you could just put nav mesh boxes on these red floors. You could probably drop one on the ground down there, because I assume that's a floor as well. Maybe it is not a floor. What is this? Stack mesh actor. That should be fine, right? Yes, that should be fine. I will have to look into why it does not like this regular floor down here. Because for some reason it does not want to spawn AI down here. Well, that's something we'll have to figure out. I will look into that tomorrow and see if I can figure out why it's doing that. Just to check it. 234 is one big floor, right? Yeah, it is. It's one big floor. Okay. So then I will have to figure out why it does not like... It likes these cubes, but not this cube. Interesting. Well, whatever the case, at least on these floating red platforms, it appears that there is no issue with giving nav mesh to them. Seems to light right up. Pretty happy about it. Ooh, no, it doesn't like this one. Maybe if I sync it in. Okay, so there might be something different about the different ones. For example, that one, it likes it, and this one, it does not. Uses experimental class brush. Interesting. Well, whatever the case. Okay, there we go. So maybe it just didn't like the... Oh no, it likes the floor there. So that's just being peculiar, I guess. Just being picky for some reason. Let's try something just for ha-has while I've got this going. Because theoretically we could create boxes along the ground too, so that enemies just kind of spawn all over the place wherever we want them. Anywhere we can put a box like this, we can spawn enemies. So now that I have that one box right there, those 2 boxes there, and the one on the floor, let's play from up here so we have a vantage point to look down. So there's some viruses, there's some viruses, there's some viruses, and down there are some viruses. And the viruses are going to move around their respective areas. Yeah, this is a pretty big box down here, the one that we just made. So there's one here, there's one over there. Neat. Alright, and again, as I said, I won't be saving these changes, so don't expect to see this big box or that little box here. Yeah, so those are the changes that I made. They're already committed, they're already pushed, everything's already set up. I'm just going to go update the wiki, but I just want to make sure I didn't forget any other changes. I made a few little quality of life changes too for things, like because the restart commands that Dana had put into the menus were checking for main menu, not main menu 1, or I mean main room, not main room 1, so I had to update those so that it would go to the right place. And I fixed the replicating problem so that they actually replicate on each other. I cleaned up the game over functions, yep. What else did I do here? File structure changes, which I showed you guys already. I made the enemies items, and the items became pickups, and the environment folder is separate and has like moving things in the environment and bounce pads and stuff. AI nav mesh issues was the just an issue that occurred where like basically the boxes were too big, so sometimes the enemies would spawn on the edges and then they could wind up falling off or getting out of the boundaries. Spawning issues was the fact that they sometimes collided with each other on spawn, or they wouldn't spawn because of collision, which I fixed by making the enemies have their own collision type as well, just like I did with power-ups, just like I did with projectiles. So they don't have to worry about colliding when they spawn. They can actually spawn directly inside of each other, which is perfect because then when they move, they look like they replicate by splitting apart. Collision issues was just little random things, getting that up and running correctly, etc. Player spawn bug was just that thing about when you hit restart, it was reopening the level, but the level name it was trying to open was wrong. So it was putting you into, I don't know what, it was putting you into, I think it was putting you into the skeleton room because it was the closest match or something. Because you were spawning on the ceiling of this body, but on the roof, it was weird. So I fixed that so that they always, you'll always spawn in the correct location. One more thing I will show you here as an idea. Let me just mess around with this for a second, because I should be able to kill all these quickly and then hit the restart just to show that it's actually going to put me in the right place. Oh no! Well, that sucks. Never mind. I did mess with the pain-causing volumes, and I set them up to work with our structure correctly. So if you are playing and you have a pain area like this, so this is me standing inside of an area that causes damage. It causes 1 damage per second as long as I'm inside the box. This might be a cool mechanic for us to put in the final release, or maybe even playtest in the beta, where we have like we talked about, maybe an area like stomach acid or something, where if you step on it, it damages you, or something like that. Just another cool mechanic that it only took a couple seconds to throw together. I really just had to go in and set it so that there was a function tied to taking damage from a damage and a pain volume like this. So we could sort of make an area now where, like, if you step in a certain boundary, or if you want to cross like this area, you're going to take a little damage as you go through. So I could like widen this out, and I could make it like 3, and then we could play from like over here and make it where, like, if I wanted to cross the room to this other side, I'm going to take some damage on my way through. And we could, you know, fill that volume with like a watery substance, or like a acidic bubbly substance. You can turn on the water volume and the thickness so that it actually, you move slow through it and everything. This is just something mostly for, I kind of set up quickly just for Vaughn to mess around with as an idea about making our level dynamic and interactive and feeling cool, you know? We could put like a pool of that acid maybe down where the stomach would be or something. But yeah, that's all I have for this one. So some bug fixes, some file structure changes, some cleaning stuff up, and then I added the elevators. I fixed the spawn function to be a lot better, look better, function better, feel better. So for alpha release, I would say it's really just putting all the meshes down, putting the power-ups throughout the level. The level's already built, which is great. We'll just have to put down our jump pads, our elevators, stuff like that. And the nice thing about these elevators is we can make instances of them that have different variables for how far they slide, things like that. One thing I will be doing between alpha and beta, what I'll probably spend that whole week doing, is going into the blueprints and making a lot of things into variables that we can track and check and change. So like here we have 0 through 19. I might change the 19 to a variable that we can set. So if a player wants, you can make a hard mode where there's more viruses, or we can make an easy mode where there's less viruses. The duration here is marked at 60, but I can make this a variable where we can choose how long it takes for them to spawn. So again, a hard mode might start with 30 and they replicate every 30 seconds. An easy mode might only start with 10 and they replicate every 120 seconds. I'm just going to go through and clean all this up with variables so that the game becomes much more customizable and easy for us to work with for the final release. As well as I will be doing commenting, which I'm notoriously bad at doing. But that'll allow me to break down everything into different areas so that it's easy for people to see what does what and how it does it and where it does it. I may also go back and start doing collapsed functions like or collapse graphs. So like when you have something like this, I can take like well, this is actually a bad example because they're both. Here we go. The event graph is better. I can take like a graph like this and I can collapse it down. Collapse down to a function. Okay, maybe not with that one. Let me see. Let's do macro. Oh, there we go. Collapse nodes. So I can collapse this down into just like this. And I can call this, you know, stick input just like it's called. And then when you go into it, it goes into this graph, which is the stick inputs. So collapsing all the graphs allows me to take everything like this and make it just a nice collection of squares where each thing is a thing. So again, it's an organizational thing that'll make it a lot easier for us to move around, navigate, and work on the project. But making sure that the project actually functions as intended is a little more important, so we'll be working on that first. Alright, so there goes that. Looks like that's everything I got today, so we'll do our meeting for Sunday, and we will figure out what we're doing from there. Take it easy, guys.